Welcome back to the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. Today, I'm really excited about our guest, Jess Glazer DeRose. She is going to be a really fun interview. Please stick around. You're going to want to listen to this. So again, we're brought to you by the Tipping Jar of Wisdom, where as a subscriber, you get access to exclusive content every Thursday straight to your inbox with actionable tasks from guests that will help you grow your business. So head over and connect with me on Instagram at Virtually Kiri or LinkedIn, Kiri Mohan. I am the only one. And sign up through my bio. Also, if you're looking to start or grow your business, be sure to sign up for my free monthly biz growth workshops, also found in my Instagram bio. So hello, Jess.
Hi, Kiri. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have you. So a former celebrity personal trainer and elementary school teacher, Jess Glazer DeRose, turned her once cute side hustle, quote unquote, into a multi-million-dollar business in 18 months. Since leaving her teaching job in 2017, Jess has hired a team of incredible heart-centered leaders, served hundreds of clients, and helped them generate over $20 million in revenue. As a result of donations and the awareness she and her company, the Digital Business Evolution, have generated, Jess was able to fund Ghana, Africa, with Pencils of Promise. The school opened in January 2021 and is home to over 150 students and local staff, as evident through her business, life, and philanthropic endeavors. Jess's mission is to cause a ripple effect and inspire change for generations to come, making a massive impact along the way and leaving a lasting legacy beyond her singular actions. Welcome again. This is a lot. This is a lot. In just a few years, do you ever stop and think like, oh my gosh, it's been like maybe 5.5, 6-ish years since we're recording this in 2023. And you're just like, wow.
Only when I'm on a podcast and somebody reads my bio.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, let's start just chatting about your business right now. Tell us what you do.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm the founder and the CVO, the visionary officer of Digital Business Evolution. We're really a one-stop shop for digital education. So we help people in any area, any niche, any service provider, coach, consultant. We take their expertise, their skill set, their lived experience, and we package it up and help them turn it into digital education. So whether that's high ticket, low ticket, courses, ebooks, memberships, masterminds, doesn't really matter. But that's what we help people do. And that's where we are today. And so it's been a crazy journey, but I'm also the host of Digital Business Evolution podcast.
Now, I'm sure you get asked this all the time. Former celebrity personal trainer.
Yeah.
Which celebrities?
So I'm not really allowed to share anyone in particular. A lot of the Victoria's Secret angels, a couple Olympians, a bunch of actors, very well-known musicians. I was in New York City. So you could imagine any celebrity living in New York probably came through where I worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you choose to switch from an elementary school teacher to the personal trainer, or was it opposite, personal trainer to elementary school teacher?
So yeah, I actually started working in a gym when I was 14. I worked in the daycare room, and then I worked the front desk, and then I worked my way up. And on my 17th birthday, I got certified to be a trainer. So I had been a trainer. I actually retired from training in 2020. So 18 years I worked as a trainer, and that was always a side hustle. That was always a side job. So whether I was in college, I was working as a trainer, when I was working full-time, when I was in the fashion industry, when I was getting my doctorate for physical therapy, like training was always something I just did on the side. So while I worked as an elementary school teacher, I worked as a trainer on nights and weekends, partially to fulfill like a void that I had, and then partially to help pay the bills because I did not make enough money as a teacher to pay the bills. Yeah. So training was always there. So when I left teaching, training was my safety net. Training was something that I knew that I could do when I left teaching. I think I was 12 years into training. So it was just a really easy transition for me to sort of pick that up as a job to make sure I was making money.
And then the jump to what you're doing now, how did that happen?
Yeah, that was really organic. So when the story is that I made $1 million in 18 months, which is true from the day that I left teaching. But what the bio doesn't tell you is that I actually started online in 2012. So I had put in 5 years of this quote unquote cute side hustle, never thinking I was going to grow a business. I grew up from a family of doctors, lawyers, accountants. I already felt like a failure. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was until I was probably 31. So what I was doing again was fulfilling a need and making a little bit of cash on the side. But from 2012 to 2017, while I was working full-time as a teacher, I was doing paid ebooks. I was, slinging ebooks on the internet. I was doing paid Facebook groups. I was working with people virtually. And it really started because I was doing bodybuilding competitions, and I lived in New Jersey. My coach lived in Massachusetts. This was in 2012. And she would email me my workout plan and my macros, and I paid her $79 a month. And so I had this light bulb idea of, well, gosh, I'm a trainer, and all of my friends from college and high school who don't live in the same state as me always ask me if I can train them. So it started with me emailing friends being like, hey, crazy, stupid idea. If I email you workout plans, will you pay me? And it started with people actually mailing me checks in the mail, like snail mail checks in the mail. But again, never had an idea or a desire to be an entrepreneur. So the 5 years of sort of playing around with the industry, I was on, what was that app? Periscope, like doing lives on Periscope.
My goodness. I just thought about that the other day. I was like, whatever happened to Periscope?
Yes. I was blogging every week. I mean, I assure you, my mom was the only person reading it, but I was sort of dipping my feet into different things on the internet. And then when I decided to leave teaching in 2017, which we can talk about that leap, I did not replace my income. I was making about $300 a month in my side hustle. So nowhere close to the $50,000 I was making as a teacher. But again, I knew I had training that I could fall back on. So when I left teaching, that's sort of where that story starts of the 18 months. And so to answer your question in a very long-winded answer, I scaled that cute side hustle to multiple six figures in about 60 or 90 days. It was like really fast as soon as I had the time and energy to put into it. And then from there scaled to $1 million pretty quickly. So very naturally and organically, a lot of my friends in New York that were trainers were asking me, this is 2017. What are you doing behind the computer all day? What's that stuff? Why are you on Zoom? What are you doing? How do you make all your money? And so I started helping friends in 2017, just behind the scenes. One friend turned into 3, then 7. Every week we're sitting behind my laptop in the studio in between clients. And I am like, this is interesting. The teacher in me had sort of created a curriculum, again, just totally by accident. And I brought my first friend through a launch, and she had an $80,000 launch. And that's when I was like, wow, I think I have something here. So in 2018, I started officially teaching people business stuff. And I was doing both for a couple of years. And so in 2020, I finally hung up the hat in health and fitness. So I was running both businesses, health and fitness online, as well as business. 2020, I hung up that hat, went all in on just the business coaching and consulting. And that's how we're here today.
You make it sound like, and then I just hung up my hat and, everything just kind of worked out. It was great.
No, it didn't. It was really hard. And I've had a lot of ego deaths, and there've been a lot of challenges, and I work really, really, really hard. So it has not been easy, but it's just been consistency. I mean, we're talking about 11 years now that I've been online. Yeah.
And that's like, I think that's such a good point to make for our listeners, is like, there's stuff behind that bio that you're not seeing. And like, I'm so glad that you went into that, because I think a lot of people want to give up because they see this like vision of someone who they did that in 18 months. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing,
but oh no,
nothing.
you were working like foundation, and there was like a lot of stepping stones you were building to get to that point where like 18 months, you could grow like that.
And I didn't do it in a way that I would encourage anyone else to. I mean, I dealt with burnout twice. I had a breast cancer scare. I was working 14-hour days, 7 days a week. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. You don't need to do that. It's not a race, and the money that you make has nothing to do with your worth. And it's taken a long time for me to learn that. But I came from a position of winning was my worthiness. And now I'm learning at almost 39 years old that I'm worthy regardless. But it's taken me a lot of icky lessons to learn that. So
why did you feel like it was a race?
It was my own internal, recovering perfectionist, recovering people pleaser, super type A, competitive athlete. And those are things that I would pride myself on. So up until probably 36 years old, I was fueled by my awards and accolades. And so if you go to my website and you see all the as seen-ons, yeah, it's cool, but at what cost, right? And I really did find a lot of worth in that. And it was my own thing. It was never anyone else. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't my husband. It was just, that was how I perceived my worthiness. And so it's taken a lot of unlearning to get to where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I see that you went on an RV trip. You bought an RV. Was that like during the pandemic or right?
Yes.
Well,
yeah. It was during the pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
So my husband and I, we were living in Manhattan, did the whole New York City living thing, loved it, miss it every single day, still love it. And when pandemic hit, the first couple of months were really tough for us living there. It just was unpleasant to be there. So we decided to put all of our stuff in storage. And originally we were going to just sort of hop around from Airbnbs. I was always working remote. He had a corporate job, but they were letting him work remote. And that just turned into crazy, stupid idea time. Let's buy a 40-foot motorhome, which neither of us have ever camped in our lives. We are not from RV families. We had no idea what we were doing. And we thought, okay, cool. We'll just go jump around the country, see where we would want to live if we retire him from corporate and he comes into my business, which was sort of the plan. And that turned into 14 months full-time on the road, 27 states. And we ended up falling in love with Arizona. So now we're in Scottsdale. We essentially never went home. So it's been 3 years. We just like didn't go back, which our families are not very happy with us, but we love it.
We are the same person because I love Scottsdale.
Oh,
One of
so
my best
pretty.
friends grew up in Scottsdale. Now she lives in Phoenix, just 20 minutes outside, but her parents still live in Scottsdale. And when I go visit her, sometimes I stay with her parents and they've got this beautiful mountain in the back.
Yes.
What is it? I can't remember it right now, but we've hiked it. It's a small mountain. It's not Camelback, but it's like you can see it from there. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's in the background. It's got the pool
So
and they got
pretty.
I just love it. I love Scottsdale. Yeah. And whenever I look at houses there, I'm like, well, that's a little pricey. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the market's crazy.
Yeah. I think her parents were lucky enough to buy into that area like years ago. Yeah. I mean, 30, 40 years ago. So they're pretty lucky. So that's really cool that your husband works with you. I saw it was from Massachusetts, which is where I am right now. Was that scary to say like, okay, we're going to give up your stable income, your steady paycheck, and you're going to come on board with me? Because now you're like responsible for the financials for your whole family unit, really.
Yeah, it was. At the time, it wasn't really a conscious fear. I think there was a subconscious pressure. It definitely was not conscious because when he did leave, I was doing over 7 figures a year. So it didn't feel that scary. And he had a really great corporate job. He had worked 12 years up the corporate ladder at this particular company. He had actually just gotten promoted to the job that he had been working towards for like 2 years. But when we started to test out the quality of our life, if we didn't have to stay, and it had nothing to do with New York, we love New York, but the sort of asking for permission to go on vacation and all these different things, much like many people during the pandemic, we were just kind of gifted the opportunity to look at things a different way. And so when we initially left New York, we went down to North Carolina where my brother lives, and we stayed with him for 6 weeks. And that's where we got a taste of like, wait a minute, if you leave your corporate job, our life could look very different. And so we always thought, full transparency, I would be doing maybe 5 million a year, or we'd have 10 million in the bank before we decided it's time to retire him. But when we started to look at the numbers, and also at the time I was looking to hire basically the position which he took on, which is CEO, it made more sense for him to leave and to come in. And it was that exchange of, yes, a little bit of the security, which is false security anyway, but a little bit of the security for the freedom and autonomy that we had been craving. And when we really started to sit down and talk about it, it just didn't make sense for him to stay. So at the end of the day, we could churn out a couple more programs, do an extra launch or two, and essentially make up what his corporate career would bring in. Now, we don't have that security, but we also don't have limits, right? There's no container in which we have to live in. So we get to create it all.
Now you have, when I was looking at your site, you've got the mentorship, the self-study, a mastermind, customized support, and even digital templates.
Yes.
Which is the most profitable for your business?
Our flagship program, so our signature program, Empower, is a 12-week group coaching program. I'd say that's absolutely the bread and butter to the business. That's where the majority of the clients come from, revenue comes from. However, it does have a lot of overhead because we have a lot of coaches in there. So we are paying our coaches. And so that does have more overhead, but the sheer volume at which we do Empower and how many people come through Empower, that is the soul of the business.
How many people go through usually?
A couple hundred a year. So it depends on how many times we launch it. We've done 4 or 5 launches per year. We generally do about 50-ish people per launch, 50 to 60 people per launch. So a couple hundred per year. Yeah.
Why do you do launches as opposed to keeping a rolling admission?
We've actually tried everything. So Empower first started completely open enrollment, meaning anyone could come in anytime. As a teacher, I didn't like how that felt because people were sort of all over the place. So if you imagine, we take people through just like school, chapter 1, chapter 2, all the way up to, chapter 19. So on calls, we were finding that people would be on chapter 1, people would be on 19. It wasn't really fair. So we moved away from open enrollment. We then went to rolling enrollment. So rolling enrollment was sort of a blend of the two where you could join at any time, but then you were put into like track 1, track 2, track 3. So our program's broken into 3 phases. And so if you were sort of in the month 1 phase, you'd get on month 1 calls, month 2 would get on 2, 3 on 3. That way it helped a little bit, sort of dissipate that feeling of like, whoa, I'm behind because someone's ahead of me, or someone ahead being like, oh, this is so boring. I've already done this. we did that for a little while. I'd say those two, open and rolling enrollment, probably were the first 9 months of us offering the program. And then we just went to a strict open close, partially for my own energy, because when it was open, when it was rolling, I was wearing all the hats all the time. So 1 minute I was a marketer and I was marketing the program. The next minute I was in the program, coaching the program. And in the next minute, which is all in the same day, now I'm offboarding clients. And so it was causing me to have to sort of shift my energies and how I was showing up. And for me, that was a little bit exhausting. But also just being the teacher, it made more sense in my brain. No. Class 1, here we go. Everyone's on chapter 1. This is your homework. This is what we're doing. And we found that our client results went through the roof when we started to actually keep it really structured. So the last 4.5 years, we've had an open closed enrollment, and it works for us. We like it.
So you have 19 chapters that people have to work their way through. The students have to work their way through. But then it sounds like you also have some coaching calls as well.
Oh yeah. 2 or 3 a week, live coaching.
Oh.
Yep. So we have like the teaching portal is all the content. We tell you what to do each week, but you're doing it on your own time. The coaching calls is where you're going to have hot seat coaching. Our hands are in your business. You ask your questions. Then we have the community, which we still house it in Facebook. I still believe Facebook is the best place for communities. And we have a coach on staff every day in that community. So any questions you have in between calls, that's where we connect with everyone. And then we have very extensive continuing education as well. So just for going through the program, you get 12 weeks of coaching for free after you graduate. We've got an alumni network where we do free workshops every single month. So we believe deeply in the continuing education portion too. So it's really the 4 different C's: the content, the coaching, the community, and the continuing education.
Oh, I like that. It's the first time I think I've heard about the continuing education, other than I've interviewed a lot of people who have courses, and a lot of times they'll be like, after you're done, you can still be part of the community. But this is like an extra step. I like that continued education. That's good. So how did you get through the mindset blocks that may have happened when you're realizing you're coaching people, getting on these live coaching calls, sharing this information, where maybe you could feel like that imposter syndrome of like, really, can I really help all these people? Do I really know what I'm talking about? Or even when you had your first question that you were like, oh, I actually might not know the answer to that. How did you work your way through that mindset?
I worked through that mindset before I started. So I had to have a really difficult conversation with myself when I left teaching, that the only way I was going to be able to leave teaching, to be an entrepreneur, to try to go all in, was I had to remove my ego. So ego is your biggest overhead, right? Ego will cost you the most if you think you're better than, if you don't ask questions, if you don't ask for help. And that's where I had lived for many, many years. I knew everything. I had to know everything, right? Because I was this perfectionist. When I worked on that relationship with myself, it was a commitment that I made when I left teaching. I will do whatever I need to do to make ends meet. If I need to get a job that I think I'm above or, further along than, if I need to raise my hand and ask for help, and if I have to admit that I'm wrong. And so I did that before I left my teaching job. And so when I stepped into entrepreneurship, if I'm being honest, I have not come up against the imposter syndrome. Has come now, 5 years later. It never happened at the beginning because I never taught something that I didn't know, that I hadn't already done, that I didn't embody. I'm a huge advocate for that. I believe in the coaching industry, we have a lot of regurgitation happening, and I'm not throwing shade, but it's very easy to take someone's course or program and then just take it and regurgitate it to other people and sell it thinking that now you know it or you've done it, when that's not the case. So learning something, understanding something are 2 different things. Taking action and implementing something, having results from something, like these are all different levels that happen. So we learn something, we understand it, we comprehend it, we integrate it, we actually embody it, and then it becomes part of who we are, right? It's like brushing your teeth. You don't think about it necessarily anymore. It's a habit. It's just who you are. You know how to do it. You don't have to think about it. But there was a time in your life that you had to think about it. You had to actively be conscious of what you were doing. So I will never teach something that it is not just part of me. I will not teach something that I've just learned. I don't share something that I just want to regurgitate. So with that, I've never felt imposter because I'm not teaching something that I don't already know. And I admit all the time when I don't know something. So on a coaching call, I have absolutely no ego. I have no issue saying, I don't know that, or let me go find out for you. Or in our company, that is exactly why we have an accountant on staff. We have a lawyer on staff. We have a tech person on staff, because that's not my zone of genius. And so if I can stay inside my zone of genius, I'll probably be able to help you more, but not always. Right. And so I'm just really quick to say, I'm not sure, let me check, or I'm not sure, here's who can help you. So I don't really come up against imposter much. I definitely didn't at the beginning because I was scared to teach something I didn't know, or I hadn't done myself or done for other people. And those are different layers, even that, right? Like you can get results for yourself, but can you actually get results for other people? That's a completely different layer of being able to coach.
I have two questions I want to ask.
Yeah.
They're both going to take it in like totally different directions. I'm trying to think what I want to. Okay. So I want to know, when you have students that are unhappy with the course or feel like they aren't getting the results they want, how do you handle that as a business owner and with your staff?
That's a great question. I am very grateful to say that's not really happened much. We set the tone right at the beginning. So I believe that expectations equal experience. So if someone expects something, this could be in a relationship, it could be communication, it could be your children. If someone expects something, that is going to determine the experience that they have. So if they don't get what they expected, then they're probably going to be disappointed. So it's up to you, the business owner, to set really clear expectations. So right off the bat, even when we're in launch, when we're enrolling people, our sales page, we do not use any flashy marketing. We do not make any false claims. In fact, we've been told by lots of peers in the industry that we're too honest, because I tell you, it's a lot of work. Like bottom line, if you come into my world, it's a lot of work. There's no just sitting around and attracting and magnetizing. You're going to put in the hours, and I'm all for the spiritual and the woo woo, but like, you can't just manifest your way to a successful business. It's not going to happen. So we're very open and honest. If you look at any of my content on the internet, it's the same thing. I'm very raw and honest. So when you come into our world on our welcome call, it's very clear. This is what you're going to have to do. You didn't invest in me. This is the part that people don't get. You did not invest in me, my coaches, or my program. You're actually investing in yourself. And so that is a fear that people have, why they don't say yes to a program, is because they have previously and they didn't get out of it what they wanted. Maybe they self-sabotaged, they quit, they let their limiting beliefs or self-doubt get in the way. And so the fear that people have for even making an investment often comes from past experiences that they have had and how they show up in the world. So we just make it really clear. I mean, I say it humbly, but our program works if you work it. And that's what we say all the time. So coming to all the calls is not going to give you a successful business. Even asking questions on all the calls, it doesn't work through osmosis, right? So you can be a great student, but being a great student is not the same thing as being a great business owner. And we tell our people, like, we're not giving you a grade. You don't need to be in here on every call and showing up and doing your homework and thinking it's magically going to happen. So it is pretty rare that we've ever gotten a complaint. I don't know that we actually really have ever gotten a complaint. We've had clients that are bummed in the experience because maybe they are having a silent launch. Silent launch would be you put it out into the world and no one purchases. And then we just help them reframe that. We have a mindset coach on staff. And, you know, at the end of the day, people ask like, oh, how did you get to where you are? I've had more silent launches than you. Like that's it. I've lived to tell the tale. And so it's data, it's feedback. You know, we're constantly teaching as business owners, we're scientists. It's actually our job to create hypotheses. We're supposed to take the things and mix them together and see what explodes and see what doesn't. And all we're doing is collecting data, right? And we take that data, we bring it back to the lab, we start to work with it again, and we move forward. And so we're constantly tweaking and iterating. A silent launch means nothing about you. And as humans, that's what we do. We're little meaning making machines, and we love everything to become a meaning about us. And we make it mean anything, right? We're not worthy. We were rejected. We're not good enough. We shouldn't have tried in the first place. When in reality, it's just data telling you, well, maybe your messaging was a little bit off, or you didn't have enough runway. You didn't warm your audience up. You're confused on your offer. You're actually selling the features rather than the transformation. So there are things that we can take back to the lab and sort of dissect and look at with a microscope. And that's what we do. So I guess my answer would be expectations equal experience.
That was great. No,
yeah.
You talk about your staff a lot. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like right now.
Yeah. Oh, they're the best. They are the best. I wouldn't be here without them. So we have 5 of us on our internal team. So our executive leadership team, sort of our C-suite. And then we have about 14 different coaches as well. So the coaches all come in, they're contractors, they're part-time, they all run their own businesses. We want them to, we encourage them to, and then they come in and they coach in our program as well. And that's a very extensive process. So Any one of our coaches is a graduate of our program, the main program, Empower. And then they go through a very lengthy training. So we have basically 3 to 9 months of a training, depending on how they're going to come in and coach. Most of our coaches have been around 2 to 4 years at this point. So they've been with us since the start. Yeah. Yeah.
What made you decide to have your husband be the CEO and not you?
I don't want to be a CEO. You know, people throw that term around on the internet a lot, and they'll even say like, it's CEO day, or I'm a CEO of my business. Yeah. And if you really stop and you look at the definition of CEO, first of all, if you don't have a team, I don't know if you're a CEO. There's nothing wrong with that, but what a CEO does on the daily is not stuff that I want to do at all. So it's an ego thing for a lot of people. And they think because I'm the founder, I'm the face, I'm the coach, I started it, it's my business, I have to be the CEO. And that is not true at all. In fact, if you look at some of the most successful, biggest companies in the world, the founders are not the CEOs. Most of the time, in my experience, founders are visionaries like myself. A visionary does not make a great CEO because my head is in the clouds. I'm constantly getting ideas and downloads. I want to zig and then zag, and I'm pivoting, and every 3 minutes I'm coming up with a new idea. So I'm not a good CEO, and I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. And if you've ever read the book, Traction and Rocket Fuel, Gino Hickman, I believe is the author. Traction and Rocket Fuel, both, they talk a lot about the idea between a CEO and a visionary. An integrator and a visionary. I'm not an integrator. A CEO needs to be an integrator. So very operations driven, team management driven. When I look at the day-to-day tasks of a CEO, especially one in our company, it is all behind the scenes. It is no coaching. It's no content creating. It's everything I don't want to do. So if I could remove my ego again, I don't have to be the CEO and say, I'm a visionary. And so I sit in the CVO box, which is the visionary box, which is when you look at the organizational chart as the founder, as the CVO, I am at the top of the chart. I'm not better than anybody, but I'm at the top of the chart, meaning all decisions come back up through me. And ultimately I pretty much have the end stamp of approval. But underneath me, we have our CEO and we have our COO, who's our integrator, and everything gets passed through them. And then we have 3 departments. We have the head of growth, which is essentially anything that happens before the sale. We have operations in the middle, which is, I think, the boring stuff, HR, legal, financials, just not my jam. And then we have customer success on the right, which is anything after the sale. So we have different departments. We have people that work within those departments. We have heads of each department, and they essentially all filter back up and they go through our integrator and then up to me.
And these are actual employees, right? Not contractors?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Was that a weird moment when you realized you were hiring employees and you were like taking the leap?
Yeah, very much so. And we really let our both coaches and executive leadership team take roles rather than promote roles. So everyone who's in a role on our executive leadership team, they've sort of taken it, meaning they've started to do extra work, finding that they're better off in a different seat, that they really love something, that they're asking us for continuing education, coaching, courses. And as we foster those interests, they end up taking the position rather than saying like, all right, gang, we're ready to like promote somebody to this level or this position, who wants it type of thing. So even our COO, who runs the entire company, she started as an executive assistant to me back when we were living in New York City. She would come to my apartment once a week. She was helping with anything and everything, whether it was business or life. And over the years, she's sort of taken this role and of course gotten promoted and has a salary and all that type of stuff. But it's been an organic growth for her as well as me. But yes, it's been very strange, pinch me moments of, I just never sought out to be an entrepreneur. And, an entrepreneur is very different than a solopreneur. And there are a lot of people who we work with who want to be a solopreneur. They don't want to have a team. They don't want to be a CEO. They don't want to have salaries and 401ks and stuff and dealing with benefits. And that's amazing. Both are great. Not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur.
Now, going back to what you said earlier, when you said, felt like a race and you loved your accolades, was it hard to then say you're not the CEO? Because that is, like you kind of said, it's this ego thing. Or had you already done your mindset work by that point and you're like, I don't really care about that anymore?
Yeah, I had already done the mindset work. I had also been sitting in the CEO role just by default because there was no one and hated it. So it was easy to pass it off. Yeah.
All right. So what do you think is one of the most important action items you took to grow your business into $1 million business, multi-million-dollar business?
Perceived failure, right? We say failure in quotes because it's not, it's just lessons. But every time I've messed up, made a mistake, failed, had a challenge, that's just gotten me to the next level of growth and understanding. So the only way that I'm here is just because, like I said, I've had more silent launches, more embarrassing moments, more sales pages with spelling errors. Like I've just messed up more. So yeah, I would say taking messy action and being okay with like, it's not perfect.
What do you think is what do you think is the best advice you have for people in sales for selling something like this, like a big program, these launches? What do you think is something that distinguished your business apart in the way you sold? And maybe that's marketing. Maybe it's not sales. Maybe it's your marketing and your language.
Well, I think the foundation to all marketing and sales is that it's not about you. This is a huge mistake we make. It's not about you. So whether you're talking about the way you're speaking about your product or program, the colors that you're using, like it's not about you. So it doesn't matter if your favorite color is purple. If your ideal client doesn't resonate with that, you shouldn't be using purple. So it's about them. It's about their transformation. It's about their pain. It's about their language. We see this so often. So we work with anyone in any niche, but we do get a lot of health and fitness professionals still till this day, because that's the industry I came from. And an example I can give here is, a trainer or a nutritionist using these like big scientific words or acronyms that stand for different certifications in their world. Your ideal client does not know what that stuff means. They don't care. It's not impressive. The only person that you're impressing or the only person that you're actually reaching is another trainer or another registered dietitian. So when we put all the letters after our name, I'm not saying you don't need to be certified, but you shouldn't lead with that if that's not your ideal client, right? So most people make it about themselves and how they want to speak about it and where they're at in their journey. And they forget the gap has gotten big because most of us are serving who we once were. And so if you can bring yourself back to who you were in that journey before the weight loss, before making the money, before the fertility issues, before the fill in the blank, you probably weren't speaking in the way that you are right now. So, dumb it down, use their language, second grade reading level, their colors, their mood, their pain points, not, I'm a very visual person. Most people in marketing are standing on the top of a mountain and they're looking across a valley, and your ideal client is standing on the other top of the other mountain, and you're just screaming at them, and you just keep screaming louder, hoping that they're going to hear you, but they can't hear you because you're too far, and what you're saying doesn't resonate with them, and how you're showing up doesn't resonate with them. So it's actually your job as a business owner, as a marketer, as a salesperson, to, instead of scream at your people and just do more and do it louder, slow down and build a bridge so that you can actually bridge the gap, walk across the bridge, and then meet them where they're at and really approach them calm, kind, quiet, but clear. Yeah.
You say a lot about selling the transformation.
Yeah.
Which I think is important because I think people forget that. They think that, let me just tell you about me, like you said, and what I know, but it's really like, no, what's going to transform them? How are they going to be transformed by buying whatever you have to offer, whether it's a product or service or course or whatever? What do you think has been the best investment you've made so far?
Oh, everything and anything into myself. I mean, that's such a broad range, but gosh, back in, 2016, 15, going to Tony Robbins, having a coach. I hired my first business coach in 2014. I've never not had a coach. I've never not been in a mastermind. I've been with my same mentor now for 3 years. Previously, I was with another one for about 7. So every single thing, I'm going to Dr. Joe Dispenza, his week-long advanced retreat in April. I mean, any time I invest in my growth, everything around me grows.
What do you think was the worst investment you made with your business so far?
I don't really, Mike and I talk about this all the time. We don't really believe in bad investments because we come from the perspective of like, we can learn something from everything, whether it was how we don't want to act, things we do want to do, or just like, wow, we made that decision too fast. We didn't do enough research. So I don't know that there's been a bad investment. There have been a couple that I've been a little bit disappointed in. In terms of the business, I will say, anytime that I've thrown money at a problem, and I'll break that down, anytime that I've thrown money at a problem, I've been left disappointed. So for example, maybe I don't have time or capacity to do a particular task like graphic design or copywriting or building out a sales page or something. When we've had the capital and overhead to take it and sort of throw it at the problem going, okay, quick, you fix it. The team and I have been left disappointed every time. And that's happened about 3 or 4 times when we've just like thrown money at the problem to hire someone to do the thing. It's come back where we're fixing it. We're doing it anyway. We've wasted time and we should have just sat and done it in the first place. So I will say that. And then other investments, Mike and I are big into investing. We have real estate that we invest in. We have startups that we've invested in. We've got money all over the place. We have gotten caught up in, unfortunately, one really bad investment that ended up being a flop. It was a total like scheme, which was unfortunate. But again, the lesson there was so beautiful. It was just, there were so many parts of that. Of the biggest lesson that we took away was that was exciting. And we had done research. We had talked to so many people. So many of our friends were investing in the same thing. Like we really thought we were good. We're not mad about what happened. We're grateful, number one, that we didn't put more money into it. Because had that mistake happened further in our journey, we probably would have put more money into it. That really would have stung. But number two, it was, wow, we were so busy investing in other things at that time. Because at that time we had invested in a couple startups. It was a beautiful reminder that where we should be investing first is either, of course, us, but always let's invest in our business. Let's invest in the growth of our business before we start dumping money into other people's. Not to say that we're not investing in other businesses anymore, but it was like, oh, that's interesting. Because what that money could have done in our business, whether it was a new hire, if it was ads, if it was marketing spend, if it was whatever, it's like, wow, that could have grown exponentially. But instead, it sort of got flushed down the toilet, which is fine. But it was a beautiful lesson for us of, oof, okay, us first, business second, other things third.
You seem to be in a really good place with learning from moments like these. I'm very impressed. I don't know what kind of work you've done, but you're able to say, you know what? It's all a learning experience. And I love that because yes, I think everyone gets to that point eventually.
Yeah.
But in the
moment. Isn't that what we're here to do though? Like, it's interesting. Everyone's always we're in this race all the time that we were talking about. Everyone wants to get there, wherever there is, your proverbial there, the weight loss, the money, the leaving the job. And we're always like pushing and racing to get there. But at the end of the day, the only time that you're done is when you're no longer here. And I know that's like very, very sad and morbid, but like the only time that you actually arrive is when you're no longer here. So that's the quote of like, just enjoy the journey, but truly the destination is in the doing. And if you're not having fun in the doing, then, there are some things that you can look at. So for us, we're just playing. We only get one shot as far as I know. This is it. It's not like a dress rehearsal. So nothing has to mean that much. And that was interesting. Our favorite word in this house is interesting. It's like, ooh, interesting. Why'd that happen? Interesting. Why'd she say that? Right. So if you could kind of just take that approach to everything in your life, then we're just students. We're just learning. We're all fumbling our way through. And then it's our job to take those lessons and share them with other people.
Speaking of the journeys and the goals, what was your original goal with your business? Did you have one, or was it just like, let's just see what happens, doing the whole play mindset? Yeah, I think it was let's see what happens. And then when I started to make some money, it was like, oh, okay, 10K a month. And then, okay, 50K a month. And then, let's get 100K a month and bigger, more. And then definitely it was, I had a 7-figure year, and then can we have a 7-figure launch? And so there definitely have been financial markers, but I think at first it was just, I don't want to be at my job anymore. So can I do it? Can I be my own boss? And am I even going to like it? Because it's hard. Not being your own boss is not for everybody. Entrepreneurship is very trendy. You don't need to be an entrepreneur. We shouldn't all be entrepreneurs. We need people that like working for other people. And that doesn't make you less than. It's knowing yourself. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years, is really learning about myself. And so I was presented an opportunity or a mindset shift back in 2012 or 2013 from my fitness coach when I was first toying with the idea of going online, again, just as a part-time thing. She said, your job as a teacher is much like a merry-go-round.
It's very predictable. And every year, you know what's coming, and there's security and there's safety. And if you think back to Tony Robbins and his essential needs, right? We have core drivers. Safety and certainty is a need of some people. She said, entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. You have no idea what's around the corner. You live for the highs. The drops could be fun, but they're also really scary. And then the lows really suck. And sometimes you're stuck in a low for a really long time. That's entrepreneurship. And when she said that, I realized, wow, the reason I'm so unhappy in my teaching job, I loved my job. I was a phys ed teacher for an elementary school. It was like the best thing ever. Scooters, parachute. It was a total dream. It really
parachute.
was.
My daughter loves the parachute.
It was
every time she comes back from a PE class, we did the parachute today.
It's literally the best. And I got to wear sweatpants every day. I had a 7-minute commute. Like, life was great. And for me, I was very unfulfilled and unhappy because I started to learn that I love uncertainty. I love variety. I actually crave the unknown. It's probably why I've never lived anywhere longer than 2 years. We move all the time. Mike too. We love the unknown. So I felt very drained in the security of, it's back to school night again. Here we are, Saturday, Christmas break, or, holiday break, book fair. Great, fun, great, perfect, wonderful for some people. But for me, it was what was making me feel like I couldn't breathe. So when I left teaching, I didn't leave to like leap and grow my wings and I'm so brave and courageous. It was, I can't breathe. I feel like I'm suffocating and I can't do this anymore. There has to be a different way for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think has been one of the biggest mistakes or challenges you've encountered in your business up to this point, and what did you learn from it?
Hiring out of need and desperation, kind of like throwing money at a problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just even like hiring too fast, right? They say hire slow, fire fast. A lot of times we get into a reactive mode in our business where we're drowning and we're literally just grasping at anything that will float by. So that's been hard, because then it usually ends in difficult conversations or unhappy people and broken relationships. We've tried for that to not happen, of course, but I think just reactivity in the business in general, whether it's hiring or people get into a reactive loop of making money, where it's like, okay, I just spent all this money. Now I have to go make money. I have to launch something else. I have to put out a new offer. And it's this hamster wheel of like, I have to make. And that's a reactive mode. Or, I mean, I did this for many years. I'd wake up on February 13th and I'd say, oh man, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. Like, I really should have put together like a love yourself challenge for health and fitness. And it's like, well, Jess, it's always February 14th. Like, why are we in this reactive mode again of, yeah, shocking. It's February 14th. That's not new information. So we've learned over the years to take more of a proactive approach and make sure that we're months ahead on our scheduling. We're thinking about having 1 to 3 income producing activities per quarter, making sure that we're putting things out so that we're not reacting, for hires. We're not reacting for money. We're really in control. We're taking a proactive approach.
Have you ever thought about selling your business or having any kind of exit plans?
Yeah, of course. So I believe you should always have an exit plan. And that doesn't mean that I think you should always sell your business. I think you should always have an exit plan. So we do everything with the end in mind, whether we're teaching someone how to create a course, we're putting up social media posts, or we're thinking about building a business. We start with the end in mind and we reverse engineer, because at the end of the day, I do believe that if you don't have some sort of an exit plan, and again, this is fine, but you'll end up just creating a job for yourself that you have to ultimately work until you're able to retire. And that's fine if you're good with that and you just want to be your own boss. You don't want to have a traditional 9-to-5, but you do want to put in, the 30, 40, 50 years of work. That's fine. But knowing that at the beginning is really important. So back in the day, we used to go to the mall, right? And when you get to the mall, you'd say, I need a new pair of shoes. So I'm going to look on the directory. I'm going to look on the map and I'm going to find Steve Madden. And that's where you're going. But then after you found out where you're going, you need to find the little red star that says you are here, and you need to have both locations. So with the business, we always think about both locations, which is why we're very intentional as well with, it's not my company. It's not my name. I am the face. I am a personal brand, but I am just the owner of Digital Business Evolution. And the reason that we did that is so that if we ever did want to sell it one day, it's not me. We could sell off the brand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have for other women who are trying to grow their business to 7 figures? And on the flip side, why do you think some women hit roadblocks and don't make it there?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is ask yourself why. Like, why is it so important to you to hit 7 figures? The quality of our life is dependent upon the quality of questions we ask. So when you can start asking yourself why rather than, what, or like, how do I do this? What, people ask me all the time, how many emails do you send during a launch campaign? And my answer is, why are you asking? Like, what's the intention behind the question? Because you sending the exact same amount as me is not going to equal a successful launch for you. So where's the question coming from? So if you think you want to hit 7 figures, why? What do you think that's going to give you? And can you, number one, get those things from other areas, people, places, or do you already have those things and you're just not recognizing that you actually have those things? And when you ask yourself those questions, you don't always like the answer, but yeah, I'd say my first question is why? And then from there, are you set up for it? Is it something you really are willing to do the work for? It's not easy. You can't just sit back. What are you planning on doing? What type of work, what type of impact do you want to make? And really unpacking, again, from starting with the end in mind, it's going to require a lot of things. I'm not saying it has to be hard, but it's going to require a lot of things. So what do you think that 7 figures is going to give you? And do you already have it? I don't know. And then I would say, and also it's crazy. It's 2023. It's a lot of money, but it's also not anymore. Like how far $1 million goes. And also there's a very big misconception in the coaching industry. Making $1 million in revenue does not make you a millionaire. And that does not mean that you have $1 million in profit that is liquid. So their profit and revenue are two very different things. Making $1 million does not mean that you have $1 million, especially when you have overhead. So we have to just be really cautious and mindful of that. And it will not solve any of your problems, most likely. It was
actually a question I had for you as you were talking once, and I kind of just like shelved it, was what do you think is the percentage of what you spend on your staff and expenses versus what you bring in? I don't know if you know that off the top of your head because you have an accountant and all that, but I thought that would be interesting because part of this podcast is to bring attention to these, high figure business owners.
Yeah.
And what it looks like on paper versus what the reality is.
Yeah. I could give you, it would be easier for me to just tell you a number than it would a percentage because it obviously is going to change depending on how much money we bring in each year. But our overhead, for the most part, will go anywhere from like 20 to 35,000 a month. About
a month.
I know that's that's a big range, 25 to 35,000, but that's kind of where we're at right now with what we have. Yeah. It just depends on the timing of the year and what extra things we're kind of putting in, using. But to answer your question before too, about roadblocks or challenges that women might come up against, you're not going to like this answer. It's generally us. We are the bottleneck. So if you're hitting a roadblock, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm not blaming you, but we become the bottleneck. So whether that is you are actually getting in the way and you're not letting other people help you, or you're not delegating, or you're sort of holding on to control, you're burning yourself out trying to do everything. You're not willing to have difficult conversations, or it might just be you're repeating the same thing over and over that isn't working. You're making things mean things about you. So you're not taking action or scrapping ideas that are not great ideas. You're not making changes to things because you feel ownership over like, but this is my thing that I created. Also, we become the bottleneck when it's our mindset stuff, right? And so maybe there's some old beliefs and stories that could use a little bit of refreshing and rewiring. And if you're not doing that work, if you're not taking responsibility and having that awareness. So a lot of times I think that we are the bottleneck. More tactically, I mean, the first thing I would look at is when was the last time you went through your foundations? We think, oh, I know I did my niche 3 years ago. I figured out my ideal client 6 months ago. I don't have to do it again. And that's ridiculous. If a construction team was going to build a house, just because they've built 50 houses doesn't mean they don't always start with the foundation. So anytime that you're creating something new, putting together a new offer, or just even auditing what you currently have, or once a quarter or twice a year, at least once a year, you got to go back to the foundation and make sure that nothing is cracked, because chances are if you're not making sales, it's not because you're not good anymore. It's probably messaging. Your messaging is probably off. You might be speaking to a slightly different client. As you grow and evolve, so does your content. And then we start leaving people behind. And that's when we're screaming from the top of the mountain and they can't hear us anymore. So tactically, I'd say go back to the foundations and really take an honest look at, niche and ideal client and your messaging and your marketing strategies and the platforms you're on and stuff like that.
Thank you. Appreciate this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
Tell our audience, where can they find you? Where can they, connect with you? Do you have anything you can offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love to connect with everybody. I hang out most on Instagram. So you can find me over there at I am Jessica DeRose. We also have our podcast. We drop 2 episodes a week, Digital Business Evolution. We're on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name it. We're everywhere. Same thing everywhere. And then in terms of a gift, I would love to gift this training, which I think is so ironic. So I had, those fake accounts that pretend to be you. I get them a lot. And yesterday it was so close to my real account that people were accidentally blocking my real account instead of this fake account. So I got blocked on Instagram and I wasn't able to do stories or post or anything. I've been like frozen. My account's been frozen, which is such a bummer. However, I thought it was so ironic because the team and I just recently put together a brand new training all about why building an email list is so important. Yeah. And I was like, well, thanks, Instagram. So we have a really cool training. It's 10 different videos. It takes you through exactly how and why to build your email list. There's tech tutorials in there. There's subject lines. There's headline. I mean, we give you everything. So it's totally free. I'd love to gift that to your audience and we can give the show notes, the link, but it's at jessglazer.com/build-your-list.
Okay. We'll put that in there. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
What is one philosophy, mantra, or quote that you try to run your business by?
I have so many, but I'll leave you with this one because it just is really powerful for me. Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back, and you have to trust that they'll appear. So when we're in this journey, when we're on this destination that we're talking about, a lot of times we're so focused on where we're going and we don't stop and look from, where did we come from? But we also don't realize how every person that we meet, every course that we invest in, everything that we learn, every class that we take, every experience that we have, they become little tools inside of our toolbox. And you don't necessarily know when you're in it, how that will help you in the future or why that's happening for you, not to you. But if you can just trust that one day you're going to find that hammer and go, oh man, I'm so glad that this was in my toolbox. This is exactly what I need right now. Then it will unfold as it should. And so with your business, we can't rush to the end. There's no point in trying to get there because, like I said, at the end is when you're no longer here. So just really enjoying being in that river as you're sort of crossing those stepping stones and trust that each stone is going to teach you a lesson. And the green ones are slippery, so don't step on the green ones, and your feet get wet sometimes. And right. But you don't know where you're going. And if you can just ride the wave and just enjoy that journey and learn as you grow, it will be a lot more fun.
Oh, I love that. That's a good one.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And again, for our listeners, sign up for our Tipping Jar of Wisdom newsletter email list, and you will get the exclusive content questions directly from Jess. Thank you again.
Thank you.